Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning if you're on the West Coast. We'll wait another 60 seconds for folks to join us, and then we'll kick off our webinar today, Authenticity in a Post-COVID World from the Eyes of a Marketer. So if you can just hang in there for another 60 seconds, folks, we'll get this roadshow going. Thank you. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're glad to have you on this webinar today. The focus is authenticity in a post-COVID world from the eyes of a marketer. This is one of several webinars we'll be doing on this topic. In fact, one of 3, and Luxury Daily has webinars throughout the year. So thank you very much for joining us. My name is Michele Khan. I am the editor-in-chief of Luxury Daily. And with me today, I have 2 esteemed speakers. Michael Colarossi, who is the Vice President of Innovation, Product Line Management and Sustainability at Avery Dennison, and also Michele Casucci, who is the founder and CEO of Certilogo, and both of them are going to talk about this topic, authenticity in a post-COVID world. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Avery Dennison. They very kindly sponsored this series, and we'd love for you to basically ask any questions. I'll come to that in a second, but we'll be taking questions from the audience too. Over the next hour, we're going to be discussing the key drivers and sentiments that have influenced consumer behaviors, how these shifts will impact business challenges and marketing strategies, specifically consumer engagement, product authenticity, and digitally connected products. We'll also reveal the latest solution from Avery Dennison, created in partnership with Certilogo, and it's called AD Verify. And you'll hear more of that in the presentation as we go. Now, before we get started, I'd just like to remind you that this session will be recorded, and we'll be basically sending the recording to all the attendees at the end of the webinar. It'll probably be the next day. And you can ask questions if you'd like. We'll take as many questions as we can. If you look at your screen, there's a control panel to the right of your screen, and you can ask questions in the chat box, and we'll try to take as many as possible. This webinar obviously will be reported on as well, and it'll be appearing in Luxury Daily in the next day or 2. Again, we'd love to have you engage with us throughout the day, throughout the hour. And I'd like to now welcome our speakers to introduce themselves. And Michael, if you could give us an idea of what you do at Avery Dennison, your role and responsibility.
Yep, thanks, Mickey, and thank you to Luxury Daily for having us today. I'm really excited to talk about this topic with all of you. Again, my name is Mike Colarossi. I am the Vice President responsible for Innovation, Product Management, and Sustainability at Avery Dennison. I'm calling in from a very snowy Boston today. So for those of you who are on the East Coast, hopefully you all are staying safe and enjoying our recent nor'easter. As the Vice President responsible for Innovation and Product Management and Sustainability, my job really focuses on understanding what's happening in the market and converting that into solutions that our customers will require in the future. So very excited to be here, very excited to engage with all of you. As Mickey said, really looking forward to a lot of questions, and the more that we get, the better conversation we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. And Michele, you're not in the United States.
I'm not in the United States. I'm actually in the beautiful city of Milan, Italy, where it's not snowing, but the weather isn't that great, honestly speaking. So thanks, Mickey, and thanks to Luxury Daily. I'm also very excited to be here. My name is Michele Casucci, and I'm the founder and CEO of Certilogo, which is a digital platform that allows brands to connect with their end customers through a product authentication service that is powered by an AI technology that we have pioneered, and that is currently serving one user every 8 seconds from 180 countries plus. So that's what Certilogo does. I'm Italian, but I grew up in Germany. I'm the father of 3 teenagers, and yeah, that's all you need to know.
Great, thank you, Michele, and thank you very much, Michael. So folks, today we'll touch on 4 topics. The first one is consumer behaviors, shift and strategies. The next is product authentication. The third is digitally connected products, and then we'll wrap with the discovery of AD Verify and how the solution works. So we'd encourage you to stay with us for the whole hour. And as I pointed out, you can basically ask questions in the chat box to the right of your screen. We'll take as many as possible, and we'll be glad to send you this deck and also a recording of this webinar. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Michael. Michael, if you could just walk us through consumer behaviors, shifts, and strategies.
Yep, Mickey, before we do that, I wanted to just give some context for Avery Dennison and Certilogo working together. So for those of you who don't know or who aren't familiar with Avery Dennison, we are a material science-based company that provides products and solutions to retail brands around the world. Many of you are likely customers of our labeling products. Like many of you as well, though, we've seen the rise of digital. And over the last year or so, we've been very much focused on transforming our solutions into more of a digital orientation. And a good example of those are our RFID business, where we have invested heavily in that technology as a driver of inventory accuracy and control, and helping then to drive broader consumer engagement. So as we've been developing this digital strategy, we've recognized that for Avery Dennison to continue our leadership position as an end-to-end solution provider, we needed to develop not only digital solutions, but we weren't going to do it alone. And so recently, Avery Dennison announced this very exciting partnership with Certilogo. The partnership between our 2 companies is going to focus on integrating Certilogo's technology into our apparel labeling products. And so through this partnership, this idea of AD Verify was born, which is the solution that we'll be speaking with you all about in a little bit. We have a lot of time, and Michele is going to walk through more of the technology side of that. But at a high level, the solution is a consumer-enabled authentication that's embedded into your product, either directly embedded or via a label, and that allows a consumer using a smartphone to immediately verify the product authenticity. And so whether you're buying something online, whether you're buying something in a store, you can immediately use your smartphone, scan it, and then identify that this is truly an authentic good, which we recognize from a brand protection standpoint is a very important element in protecting brands and their image, and is a growing issue within the industry around brand protection and authentication. So very excited to launch the solution, very excited to launch this partnership with Certilogo. And I want to hand over to Michele just to talk about a little bit more about that partnership.
Yeah, so let me just add that AD Verify is, if you like, the result of a combination between Avery Dennison's expertise in brand protection solution and supply chain data management on one hand, and Certilogo's expertise in consumer authentication on the other hand. And in essence, what AD Verify does is that it allows brands to elevate the physical product with digital experiences. And needless to say, we're also thrilled to have been chosen by Avery Dennison. So excited about that.
Great, thanks, Michele. So as Mickey was mentioning, we're going to talk about four topics. The first one that we're going to talk about will be around some of our consumer behaviors and how they're evolving. The second, of course, is going to be around product authentication. The third, digitally connected product, and then the fourth is the opportunity and the solution that we have with AD Verify. So if we can go to the next slide, I think we all recognize that 2020 and now the start of 2021 has been a period of time like no other. And frankly, it almost seems like it's an understatement to use those words. And I sincerely hope that all of you are staying well and are keeping well, and you and your families are healthy and safe. There's no doubt that the pandemic and the ensuing economic crisis has rocked most companies. We've all had to quickly adapt to a very uncertain environment. And we also are having to adapt in our personal lives to engaging differently within the community, engaging differently with brands, with retailers, and with product. And as we are adapting, we are all creating different versions of what you often hear as the new normal. The challenge for marketeers and for companies all around the world right now is trying to determine which of those trends or which of those behaviors in new normal are truly going to stick. And so it's a challenging time for all of us. But as you step back and you start to think about it more holistically, we fundamentally believe that it's an acceleration of a lot of the trends that we had previously seen in the industry. And the pandemic and the ensuing economic crisis have just caused us to refocus and reprioritize and maybe push forward. So there's equally plenty of opportunity in the crisis that we're all facing. So as the next step, if we can go to the next slide, we're going to start talking a little bit more about some of the key drivers that are behind the trends and the sentiment that all of us are feeling. So if you can go to the next slide, the first we all talk about is the e-commerce boom. Now, I know for myself personally, I've actually not stepped foot in a retail store in now nearly a year, either because of a lockdown or frankly, because it's now become that much more convenient for me to type on my computer, search something up, press a button, and 2 days later, it ends up in a nice box at my house. So that convenience is driving a lot of the e-commerce boom. You can see here that when surveyed in about Q2 of 2020, 50% of global consumers are saying they're spending more time shopping online. I'm actually a little bit surprised that it's not more, and I would anticipate if you take that survey today, I would anticipate that a lot more people are spending their time online. E-commerce adoption, like it has for me, has almost become the sole adoption route and the sole channel for consumers to drive their purchases. And so it's becoming more and more important for brands and retailers to ensure that their e-commerce platforms are not only well performing, but are differentiated and are providing new services and alternatives compared to their competitors. So that would be the first element around one of the big trends that we're seeing. The second is digital product discovery. So as I was saying, we're not moving into brick and mortar stores as much because of lockdowns, because of social distancing, because of all the restrictions that we have. So as marketers, we have to find new ways of engaging with our consumers. And so this is where we're starting to see digital product discovery becoming more and more of a trend. Whether it's going online and actually seeing your garment on your own body even, or in 3D, or be able to understand and look at the product details, or whether it's actually things like social media or the gaming or apps, we're all now much more digitally connected, and going forward, consumers are going to be much more comfortable with not only the online platform, but then this new method of discovering your products, whether that's actually looking at a product and scanning it, looking at it online, or engaging in a different way. And so here, the opportunity for all brands and all retailers and this is going to sound a little bit cliche, is to embrace digital. I'm not aware of any company out there that is not looking at digital right now. It is a massive trend, but equally it is a massive space. And I believe that all of us are challenged to determine what are going to be the right proof points, what are going to be the right use cases where we want to digitize, either to make consumers' lives easier in terms of their engagement with our brands, or make the delivery experience easier, or even allow us to extend our marketing through post sale. So that's the second big trend. The third trend, we hear it more and more, and we're seeing this market grow exponentially, is the rise in resale. Now, we can't really discuss retail without the conversation on resale. And this market, as challenging as it is, and frankly, as scary as it is to many of us, is changing how consumers are behaving. The idea that I can purchase a good today and wear it for 3 or 4 months, and then find a resale or reuse opportunity is growing, and is well, what was foreign to me personally as a consumer is now becoming much more of a norm, particularly as you start looking at millennials and Gen Z. And so, according to some of the companies in the space, ThredUp as an example, they're expecting that this sector will ultimately be bigger than the retail sector within probably the next decade. And so there's tremendous opportunities here for resale, whether that is creating a resale platform to bring consumers back and actually generating another sale, or whether it's linking it to your sustainability story or increasing customer loyalty. It is something that all of us are challenged with determining how are we going to engage in this particular trend. Now, I know there's a lot of third-party companies out there that are driving this, but I also know as brands, we're thinking about how do we drive our consumers back to our platform versus a third-party platform, and that's something that I think we're going to see wash out here over the next several years. And then I think one of the really important elements that links up to our AD Verify story here is authenticity. So one of the biggest challenges within the resale market is being able to authenticate your product easily. And we'll talk a lot more about how being able to scan your garment instantly and understand that it is authentic can dramatically improve this resale opportunity for not only the third-party organizations, but also for brands themselves. The fourth trend is transparency. More and more consumers are asking for transparency on products. Whether it is understanding what goes into them, how it was made, what types of labor is going into the making of that product. There is a next level of transparency that is coming, that is facing many of the brands as it relates to their specific products. And so we're going to be explaining transparency a little bit later in a future session. We won't talk about it a lot today in this session, but it is something that is a trend that we are seeing becoming more and more important. And it's starting with simply sort of talking about what products went into, what raw materials went into your products, or are the materials sustainable, or can you track that back to source? But this idea of being more transparent within your supply chain is something that we will continue to explore in a future session. And then finally, I talked about it earlier around linking digital to sustainability. But as we all know, this pandemic has really forced a lot of us to think about sustainability in a very different light, bringing health and human and wellness back up to the fore and increasing importance. And it is also forcing a lot of our brands to change permanently. And so those brands that are going to survive this crisis are also going to have to think about new business models. And so whether it's the theme of circularity that is leading up to a more regenerative environment where we're taking less out of the environment, giving time for the earth to breathe and recover, or whether it's returning to more of a consumer-focused economy, but doing it in a better or different way. These are all trends that we're all forced to address. And so you can see here, 67% of consumers consider the use of sustainable materials to be an important purchasing factor. It is becoming more and more important and more critical for brands, not only to have a story around sustainability, but be able to prove the sustainability of their products and solutions. So those are the 5 major trends that we're seeing in the industry and the challenges that we are facing as an industry that we are all going to have to tackle. We're going to talk about how some of our more digitally oriented solutions are helping us to address these five different trends. If we can go to the next slide, we talked about these trends. What's also happening, our consumer expectations are changing, and driven largely by the pandemic. As I said earlier, I think many of these trends were already present. The pandemic has only accelerated it. As people have less pocket money to spend, they are making much more deliberate decisions about what they're buying and what they're spending their money on. So the first is living a unique brand experience. Consumers are expecting more and more to create a unique connection with brands through the products and the purchases that they make. They no longer want the generic, more of this idea of personalization and creating unique experiences for them as a specific consumer and a loyal buyer of your brand. So here, think about the idea of personalization, more immersive moments, events and events at brick and mortar stores, creative storytelling, customized design and content for the consumer. There's a lot of different areas where brands and consumers can engage differently and at a deeper level. The second thing that we're seeing, and I think frankly all of us are particularly feeling right now, is many of us haven't seen friends or family now for well over a year, is that we crave this human connection, and it has this pandemic has only sort of heightened that awareness within a lot of consumers and the need for us to have personal interactions and engagement. And so that's going to be another key important trend. I talked to you about this buying of authentic products. All of us and many of you, I'm sure, have seen the news reports about fake product rings and fake product busts, and the whole economy around this is black or this gray market. And so making certain that I am buying an authentic product is incredibly important, particularly if you are spending a lot of money on those products in the luxury space. So this idea of authenticity and consumers themselves being able to authenticate a product and not having to rely on someone else telling them that it's authentic is a trend that we are definitely seeing. And then finally, the last one that I'll talk about here is around the high tech improvements that are happening in online and offline shopping experiences. So the NRF, National Retail Federation, has said that 66% of in-store shoppers and 63% of mobile shoppers agree that there needs to be technology and there needs to be innovation to improve their customer experience. So whether it's as simple as deploying technology like RFID to ensure that when I buy something, I know it's available, or whether it's creating in-store experiences, consumers are expecting technology to make their lives much easier and to make it easier for them to engage with brands. So we can go to the next slide, please. So all of the trends, all of the challenges, or the changes in consumer behavior, consumer sentiment, are leading to massive challenges for marketers. And I'll be honest, for those of you who are marketers, I don't envy your position. I'm the lucky guy who has to innovate product, but I'm very much reliant on our marketers to really help us figure out how we're going to engage deeply. So what are those challenges? First, as I've said, it's finding new ways to engage, and finding ways to do that in an environment where physical stores may no longer be your primary route of engagement. And so how do you think about online? How do you think about digital product creation? How do you think about digital engagement after purchase? So I think that's one. We've talked about digital transformation. The entire industry is transforming. So whether it is digital marketing, how you go to market with your product, how you actually produce your product, how you engage with consumers, the whole supply chain is going digital. And this is going to be a multi-year trend that we're going to have to face as marketers. Then the other one is around extending the purchase experience. So what's really great about digital technology is that you can extend that purchase experience beyond that point of purchase. So you can create an experience and a unique experience for consumers after they brought that garment home, after they've worn it several times. Hey, I want to return it and I want to find a reuse or recycling opportunity. You have this opportunity to create a long-lasting relationship that deepens that relationship with your customers. All of this is going to generate tremendous data. And so getting this 360 view of our customers is going to be incredibly important and will be enabled by the massive amount of data that we'll be able to collect. A challenge, of course, here is those privacy concerns, and how are we going to make certain that we protect our consumers and their privacy? And then more importantly, how do we glean insights, and what do we do, and how do we action off of those insights? So finally, if we can go to the next slide here. There you go. So engaging with your customers is always top of mind. But I think in 2020 and in 2021, it's only that much more important given the changing landscape and the challenges that we all face. And a couple of quotes here, one from McKinsey, around 75% of buyers and sellers now prefer digital options over face-to-face, either due to safety because of pandemic, or frankly because of speed and convenience. I told you the story at the beginning of the session around, I haven't stepped in a retail store in a very long time. I'm growing accustomed to shopping online, having something delivered in store, and if I don't like it, I'll return it. Not as convenient today, but I'm getting very much comfortable with that, and a lot of consumers are facing into that same situation. And so businesses going forward, we need to focus on how do we engage, and how do we bring digital to life in the products and solutions that we offer to ensure that we can connect to our customers, drive sales, and also offer product authentication. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michele to talk to us about product authentication. Michele?
Thanks, Mike. So in the previous section, you've looked at how COVID-19 has, as you said, accelerated the need for brands to embrace digital, and how marketers are challenged to devise engagement strategies that resonate with the new post-COVID consumer, so to speak, particularly with the sentiments that you talked about before. In this section, we will look at one way in which marketers can do just that, namely through digitally connected products, and specifically by making it possible for consumers to authenticate a product. And we'll actually make the claim that product authentication is the most powerful hook for engaging consumers and for navigating them to the brand's very own world and its marketing, of course. And we will back this claim up with research. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so before we get into the research, let me start with a basic but nonetheless, I think, very important proposition. And it's the proposition that you mentioned before, Mike, namely that from the perspective of the consumer, knowing that a luxury or a fashion item is authentic is essential to maximizing the pleasure of buying brand names. And I will come back to this point in the next slide. Now, the problem is that today, no. Okay, I will get back. Yes, thanks. So the problem today is that assessing the authenticity of an item is not as simple as it used to be. So in the past, all a consumer needed to confirm that a product is genuine was simply the brand logo. Today, in a world in which it has become increasingly difficult to discern between what's trustworthy and what's not, what's real and what's fake, it's not that easy anymore. Also, today everyone is a connected consumer, so there is a natural expectation that one should be able to retrieve any information and be able to do just about anything with a few swipes on the smartphone. And in fact, today, and you touched upon that briefly, Mike, there's a new generation of technologies that allow to scan the label on a product and discover, basically in seconds, if it's authentic. And the point that we would like to make here is that brands that leverage these technologies are de facto pioneering the new normal for when it comes to brand trust and consumer engagement. Yeah, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so let's look. Let's get back to the statement I made before, namely that for a consumer, knowing that a luxury or fashion item is authentic is essential for consumer. And let's see. Let me show you how research supports this claim. And here are two key findings that come from a survey that we did on 1,500 consumers from the USA, from UK, from China, from Italy, and from France. And the two key numbers you can see on the right-hand side of the slides. The survey basically revealed that 87% of global fashion and luxury consumers assign high importance to knowing that a brand name purchase is authentic, and 77% of shoppers globally would like to speed up the authentication process using digital technologies that determine in real time if a fashion or luxury product is authentic. So this clearly shows that authenticity means a lot to consumers and that there's a real need here. It also means that there is an opportunity for brands to take advantage of this need. So let's have a look at why authentication matters for brands. Well, first and foremost, because authentication builds trust and loyalty to customers. And it shows that the brand is willing to be open and transparent about it. Secondly, because authentication enables brands to connect particularly with high-spending consumers, because not surprisingly, those are the ones who value authenticity the most. Also, adding a product authentication capability to the product, which is obviously a very important touch point with the consumer, integrates the physical product into the omni-channel experience, which is perceived by the consumer as an expression of the brand's excellence, if you will. And next on my list of reasons why authentication matters for brands is the realization that such a service fights back against the growth of counterfeits, which is linked to the growth of online shopping that you talked about, Mike, that is caused by the pandemic. In fact, the COVID crisis has generated a real boom for counterfeit branded goods in many parts of the world. Last but not least, by making it easy to ensure that a product is correctly identified as authentic, makes it easier for the consumer to resell the product, which is of particular interest for those brands that are investing in sustainability and circularity. Let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so we've seen now that authenticity is hugely valued by consumers and that the need for product authentication can be leveraged by brands to their advantage. Now, let's see why we think that product authentication is a very powerful hook for generating consumer engagement. And the evidence for this claim comes from another survey that we've conducted. And to be more specific, we've conducted a survey of over 8,000 fashion and luxury consumers who had used the Certilogo platform. And these were consumers from China, South Korea, Russia, Italy, the UK, France, Germany, and the Netherlands. And the goal of the study was to find out what the motivation for using the service was, and if the authentication experience had somehow influenced the propensity of engaging with the brands afterwards. The results were quite striking. If you look at the left-hand side of this chart, you will find the reasons for which the respondents had used the service in the first place. As you can see, the primary motivation was the need to verify the authenticity of the product, 72%, whereas only 28%, so 10 plus 18, had used the service primarily for a different reason, namely to engage with a brand, either out of curiosity or for product information. On the right-hand side, you can see what the respondents answered when we asked the question, what do you expect to do after the authentication? So only 39% said they were satisfied with having assessed the authenticity of the product and didn't want to engage any further, whereas 61% said they wanted to further engage with the brand and get more information or offers. In other words, the propensity to engage with the brand beyond authentication itself increased from 28% before authentication to 61% after authentication. And so the insight here is that the need for authentication might be the primary reason for the majority of consumers, but those same consumers have also the need to engage further with a brand, a need that moves front and center once the primary need is satisfied. So bottom line, what this research shows is that a whopping 61% wants to engage with the brand even after having authenticated the product. So that's a concrete opportunity for marketers to offer content or services that will further strengthen the relationship with the consumer, increase satisfaction, improve loyalty, or drive specific actions. And Mike will now dig a little deeper into how marketers can leverage digitally connected products.
Great, thanks, Michele. I want to start off by saying that authentication and engagement experiences with consumers does not start with the purchase of a product. It does not start with the purchase of a product. It actually starts much earlier. And what our belief is at Avery, Dennison and with Certilogo is that a connected product is a permanent and active point of contact with a consumer throughout its life cycle, from its birth through the supply chain to its end of life. And so when we think about marketing, or when we think about engaging with consumers, we need to think about it across the entire supply chain, not just at that point of purchase and onward. So this is where we like to say, welcome to the world of digitally connected products. So when it comes to digital enablement, digitally connected products are going to be this crucial touch point for you to start a direct, customized conversation with your consumers, and to do that not from the point of purchase, but across that supply chain, across the entire life of that specific product. So let me talk to you a little bit more about that. If we can go to the next slide. We all, there you go. We all have smart devices now. They're ubiquitous, and so connected products are the ultimate touch point when it comes to our consumer engagement. But they also, and this idea of connected products also possesses a unique opportunity to solve some of the industry's most vexing challenges that we have, whether that is transparency of our supply chain enabling circular economies, enabling recycling of garments, authenticity, creating consumer engagement. The list goes on and on and on. And actually, with a digitally connected product, you can start addressing some of these fundamental challenges that the industry faces. So how do you do that? You're thinking, okay, this Colarossi guy, he's crazy, which may in fact be true. One day they'll probably end up saying that. But assigning a digital ID to your products at the point it is created will enable brands to tell their story. It's going to allow you to prove your sustainability. It's going to allow you to enable the recycling of garments, all with a single ID on a garment that is digital and digitally connected. Now, when you're thinking about digitally connected products, I don't want you thinking of something that's like this big physical device that's attached to a garment that's bulky and that no one really likes because it interferes. What we're talking about here is a digital ID that can be printed on a label, or it can be printed directly into a garment, or it can be sewn into a garment through a different type of trigger technology. But it is invisible to a consumer. It doesn't interfere with the garment. It doesn't interfere with your branding, and yet it still allows you to connect and tell the story across your supply chain. So my encouragement to all of you is to embrace this wave of digital product marketing and of making your physical products have a dual ID, not just the physical ID, but this digital ID, and then let your products do the talking for you and allow you to engage with your consumers over a much longer period of time. So why is that critical? Right, and we're talking about what's possible from a technology perspective, but why is that critical for marketers, and what opportunities does it create? Well, I just listed off a long number of problems that we could solve, but one, it's going to increase and accelerate the digital engagement with our consumers, and I know a lot of you are thinking about that as you think about your digital marketing strategies. Second, as I said, and the AD Verify solution was a great example, we can authenticate products digitally, and we can offer that protection not only to you as a brand, but to consumers as well. You can engage with your customers, I said, over a long period of time, not just in the store. You can show transparency of your supply chains. You can create digital content that's unique to a brand, unique to a customer. You can have the recycling network that you've always dreamed of, and trying to set that up within your organization. You can build a re-commerce platform off of it, all with a single digital ID. All of these opportunities become available to you as a marketer. And I often, as we're finding in this journey, as we speak to many of you who are brands, it can be overwhelming. And so my suggestion is pick one, pick two. Start with brand authentication or brand protection. Then maybe move on to transparency, because there's a nice clear linkage. And then maybe expand over to something that's more direct consumer engagement. But start small, and then you can expand out from there. Again, all from a single connected product and a single digital ID that's on a garment. So if we can go to the next slide. I just want to refer back again to the five triggers that we initially talked about, and it's a perfect opportunity for us as an industry to address them through digital product authentication. It's e-commerce, it's the digital product discovery, and engaging with your consumers in a different way. It is tackling this issue of reselling garments and also recycling garments, and how are we going to create that, and how are we going to authenticate garments that we are buying in a re-commerce platform. It is improving transparency of the supply chain and providing that information to consumers as they demand it. And of course, it is about sustainability and making certain that we are addressing some of the most challenging problems that we have as an industry from a sustainability perspective. So if we go to the next slide, we're going to shift a little bit now more to the specific product and solution that we're talking about. So as I previously mentioned, Avery, Dennison, and Certilogo collaborated to create this new digital consumer-enabled authentication solution that we call AD Verify, that's powered by the Certilogo technology. So in this section, we're going to talk a little bit more about how AD Verify works. I'm going to probably be less of the technical person this time. I'm going to leave that over to Michele, who is the expert, and provide you a little bit more about the power of the solution. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Here's a quick overview of what AD Verify really is. So AD Verify is a digital consumer authentication solution that's going to be embedded in your product that will protect your brand, and it's going to allow you to boost your engagement with your customer. That's what the solution does in a nutshell. So why is that important? Well, it's going to build loyalty. It's going to give your customers confidence. It's going to give them new experiences. It's going to provide you a new way to engage. For us as companies, we will anticipate that as consumers become more comfortable with authenticating their brands and their products, they will become more loyal, and they're going to become more lasting. And they're also going to be getting valuable insights on the brand owners and how they behave. Because as we saw earlier, this idea of transparency is becoming more and more important for consumer engagement. And then, of course, as it relates to sustainability, being able to authenticate a garment post-purchase is going to allow us to extend the life of garments, to really engage in this idea of reusing our products and this re-commerce platform. And this solution is going to give consumers the confidence to engage in those sorts of platforms, knowing that the product that they are purchasing is indeed authentic. So as I said, I'm going to let Michele talk a little bit about the technology at a much deeper level. I'll just say the way the solution works is through sort of optical character recognition. So you pick up your phone, you scan, and it will open a window on your smartphone. You will go through, answer a few questions, and at the end of that, you will determine if your product is authentic or if it's not. And that allows the brand then and the consumer to engage directly with that product. That is the high-level sort of non-digital overview of it. I'm going to let Michele talk a little bit more in detail about the solution. So Michele, over to you.
Thank you. I'm actually mindful of the time. I think I have only got 4 minutes left because we wanted to leave some time for questions. So I'm going to make this actually very, very quick and essential. But in this slide, we see how the solution works. So essentially, what you see here is a representation of the consumer journey, and the journey starts with what we call the engagement hook, which is what you see on the left-hand side of the slide. Typically, it's a hang tag that is placed externally on the garment, if it's a garment, and which serves basically the purpose of attracting the consumer's attention and to show how the authentication works. And then the actual authentication then takes place when the consumer interacts with a label, which typically is woven into the garment and which contains a unique identifier. And in this example, it's a QR code that the consumer simply scans with a smartphone. Once scanned, the authentication experience starts. The consumer is asked to register, answer a few questions, and then he gets a response, authentic or fake. He then is invited to further engage with the brand, and this is the very interesting part. For example, to get more information about the product, or to access exclusive contents, or to sign up for an event. Obviously, and that's an important point to make here, AD Verify offers the opportunity to personalize the authentication experience, both from a journey perspective and from a look and feel perspective. I would hand over to you now, Mike, for the last slide. So I think that allows us to be on time for the questions.
Yep, thank you, Michele. As I said, I think we've covered this topic multiple times in the course of this conversation. So what are the benefits of the solution? First, it is around creating this ongoing digital touch point for you and your consumers to extend that engagement out over the life of a product beyond that point of sale. Second, of course, it is around being able to provide the confidence in the solution and in the product that is authentic. Third, I would say it allows you to gather data and then be able to profile and then target your customers with very specific digital content and create very specific experiences for them, as we saw that as a major trend. It addresses our sustainability challenges, as we said, in terms of being able to engage in that secondhand or the re-commerce market. And then I think, I think most importantly, it is another hook, or it's another tool that you can use to not only drive value for your customers, but also importantly engage and understand those customers at a deeper level, and allow them to understand your brands at a deeper level as well. So want to thank you all for taking the time with us today, and if you would like any more information about the solutions, we'll talk about that a little bit later. You can email us to get more information about the solution. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mickey to talk about some Q&A.
Great. Thank you very much, Michael, and thank you very much, Michele. Folks, just want to remind you that we'll be, this is the first in a series of 3 webinars we are doing, and on April 7th, we'll have one on brand protection, and we'll have the final in the series on June 29th, focused on technology and innovation. Now, we have a couple of questions here, and one question for you, Michele, is how is AD Verify different in authentication from other solutions? I mean, is it just like a QR code? I mean, how is it distinct? And if you could, tackle to that, add to that, can you give us an idea of how it would work in different segments of luxury? I know we are talking about fashion here, but are there any other segments of luxury? And Michael, you might also want to take that question too.
Yeah, so how is it different from other authentication solutions? It's fundamentally different under several aspects. For starters, the solution is designed to have a combination between overt and covert security features, where the peculiarity is that the overt security feature, namely the QR code or the human readable code, is specifically designed to be copied by counterfeiters, whereas obviously the covert feature can never be copied and has security features built into it. So the peculiarity of this solution is that it basically invites counterfeiters to copy the code, and that allows us to both be sure every single time the consumer authenticates if it's fake or not because of the security features we've built in, and at the same time discover fakes in the market. So it's the only solution that allows brands to discover fake products and where those fake products have been sold, because during authentication, we ask the consumer to tell us where they found the product. Also, specifically when it comes to the AD Verify solution, it's important to say that thanks to the use of optical character recognition and image recognition technologies that we use, all Avery Dennison labels can be scanned and recognized, even those where that were applied to garments before implementing, let's say, the QR code in the specific. And the solution can be used, and we're actually using it for many different products, so not only garments but also bags, accessories, and watches, for example.
Great, excellent, thank you, Michele. Mike, we have a question for you. I mean, does Avery Dennison, I mean, it's known as a label manufacturer. I mean, does it have any experience rolling out digital solutions to, global brands? I mean, that's our association of Avery Dennison.
Absolutely, it is. I think it is often the association that people have. I started off by saying that Avery Dennison is an end-to-end solution provider. You of course see us within the context of a physical label. Behind that is a massive amount of variable data that we manage. We manage what we call in-plant printing solutions, which allow us to send data anywhere around the world and enable on-demand printing. Our RFID technology and how that enables and integrates with digital solutions at a brand or even at a retail level. We obviously have experience there. So yes, we have quite a lot of experience in deploying and implementing digital solutions with brands, and I think this AD Verify solution is just a next step in that journey, and getting one step further along in that journey in terms of digital solutions.
We had one more question, and that's from Helena Nato. Helena, I don't know if I'm trying to see if I can unmute you and you can ask a question. I'm going to give you control of the mic, Helena. Can you ask that question? She just, all right, let me ask the question for her. Can this product that you've launched, can it basically be used in other segments such as food and beverage, especially wine?
Yes.
Hello, Mickey. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes,
Yes.
Helena, go ahead and ask the question.
Yes. Hi. Well, thank you for both of you for the presentation. Thank you, Mickey, for asking the question. I was just wondering if the solution that has been presented, which is focused on the fashion industry, could it be taken into F&B, such as, and I'm thinking about wine specifically, wines and fine spirits and so on? Would that be possible to convert into that?
Thank you, Helena.
And thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, should I? Well, it's a very simple answer, I'm afraid. It's just yes. Actually, when we started the company, the very first client that we signed up was a producer of Brunello di Montalcino. So the answer is yes.
Thank you. Great choice of wine, by the way.
Yes.
We have another question, and that's from Milton Springett. And he says, just because an item is sold outside the brand owner's authorized dealer network doesn't necessarily mean an item is counterfeit. How does your covert solution help in this type of situation? Michael, you want to take that first?
Well, I think actually the way that it works is we have covert technology that's in the solution that is sewn in or applied at the point of creation. And so when it is sold, we can actually trace it back to that point of creation. You are right, just because it is not sold outside of a dealer network, it still could very well be an authentic good. And then I think with the optical characterization and then the additional security features that the Certilogo application has, including asking some very specific questions, allows us then to authenticate that product is indeed real.
So in a quick follow-up to that, what are the potential consequences of enabling the consumer to verify? Mike?
Sorry, say again, please. Okay.
What are the potential consequences of enabling the consumer to verify? What happens?
Yeah. Shall I answer that, Michael? I honestly only see positive consequences in the sense that by offering this service, what you're actually doing is you're attracting highly engaged, loyal, high-spending consumers. Mostly, especially the newer generations, let's say, to speak. So the ones that are particularly interesting for marketers, and you not only attract them, you engage them, but you also get their leads, and you're able to deliver a positive experience in a let's say in what we call the an important moment of truth. So when you actually want to know if the product is authentic or not. So I only see positive consequences. Yeah.
I would agree. The only thing that I would say and would caution some brands, this isn't your silver bullet. So brand protection and authentication is a multi-layered solution that you have to think through. So if you know you have a major brand protection or authenticity issue, I would probably urge you not to start here and actually take a step back and really look at your supply chain, and then think about how does a solution and could you deploy it into your supply chain to drive out some of the supply chain inefficiencies that are causing that issue. So I don't want to suggest to anyone that it is the only silver bullet out there.
Great, thank you. And we have time for 10 seconds to answer this question. As a marketer, I'd like the experience to reflect my brand's look and feel. Is it possible to customize that experience using your solution? Mike, if you could.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yes.
Right.
I'll go with a very simple answer.
Yes. Yeah. I quickly touched upon that point when I showed the consumer journey. Yeah. Absolutely.
Great. So, and again, another 30 seconds each. So, what did COVID do to accelerate this need for authentication? Let's go with you, Mike, first, and then Michele, you close.
I think COVID has accelerated the overall trend of engaging digitally with your products, or for consumers engaging more digitally. And that trend then has enabled a variety of different solutions. And AD Verify is a solution that allows us to manage that engagement. So I think that's, for me, the major trend that's been accelerated.
Yeah, I would add that, we're seeing these trends that are intersecting right now. So from conspiracy thinking to social contagion, misinformation, and all of this brought to scale by social media, and further compounded by the global health crisis that we're in. So if anything, anxiety and stress, have increased dramatically, and so has, in my opinion, also the need for people to be reassured, comforted, and soothed, and having the opportunity to get confirmation of product authenticity is a small, but I would argue a meaningful experience in that sense.
Great, thank you. I mean, thank you so much, Michael Colarossi and Michele Casucci. I mean, you really spent a lot of time, explaining very lucidly. And, folks, if you'd like a copy of this deck, please email anna.glassman@averydennison.com. We'd like to thank Mike from Avery Dennison and Michele from Certilogo. This is the very first webinar in a series of 3 we are hosting. And if you'd like to schedule a demo, please get in touch with Carolina Swenson. She's at carolina.swenson@eu.averydennison.com. You'll see her email right at the bottom of this slide here. And we'll be sending the wrap-up report and recorded webinar to everyone through email on Friday. And for that, folks, we wish you a very safe and warm afternoon wherever you are. And thank you, folks. And we'll see you on our next webinar on April 7th. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Michele. See you later. Over and out.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.